Note to listeners. I wrote this in the first week of April 2020 during a global pandemic. I finally had a really good cry this week. The inciting incident wasn't remarkable. I was just reading over something I wrote years ago when I was still in my parish. It was an essay about Holy Week, and before I could even prepare for them, the tears came. At first, I was crying from the grief of a beautiful time in my life that I will never have again. Then I was crying about Holy Week this year being so completely fucked because we're all stuck in our homes. Then I was crying because I wondered, was I as present as I could have been during that time in my life? Then I was crying because I realized how similar this feels to when I look at pictures of my children from when they were toddlers, when I wonder if I was too caught up in the exhaustion and challenges of motherhood to have soaked up the magic of it. Then I was crying, wondering if I only seemed to appreciate the beauty of my life in retrospect. Then I was crying because I wish I had been a better mother. Then I was crying because my friend Rachel died a year ago and I miss her. I don't know why grief's delivery system is so inefficient like this, how it seems to drop off all its packages at once, no matter when they happen to have been shipped. All I know is that when sadness shows up, it's like it puts its foot in the door and waves in all its friends. We just can't control the guest list. Compounded emotions like grief are just so unpredictable and also humbling. I'm Nadia Boltzweber, and you've stepped into the confessional. It's like a car wash for our shame and secrets. Today, I'm speaking with someone who learned that anger's delivery system is just as inefficient as grief's. For listeners joining me in the confessional for the first time, stay tuned after the interview for a blessing I've written just for my guest, but maybe also for you. Hey, confessional listeners, I just want to thank you for supporting this podcast. And I wanted you to know that there's a place called The Corners where I regularly engage with readers, post essays and prayers and bonus content from this podcast. It's called The Corners because it can feel as though some of us have been relegated to the edge of every space we are in. But here's the thing, I love The Corner. I always have. It's where I always choose to sit. Because from there you can see the whole room. And because I love the other people who hang out there. I love outcasts and queers and the girls who talk too loud. Because I love the kind of humor that comes out of lives that have not been easy. Because I love sober drunks and single dads and sex workers and the guy who lost a leg in the war. Because these are my people. And you can join us and engage with me and my work at nadiaboltzweber.substack.com. That's nadiaboltzweber.substack.com. Join other folks who share my love of grace, snark, confession, mercy, pop culture, and of course, God. We'll see you there. My guest today is Mishka Shavali. He's a singer-songwriter, and I am very curious, Mishka, what brings you into the confessional today?
Well, I've done a lot of things that I'm not proud of, but I'm going to try to focus on one for today. I guess it was the spring of 1998. I was living in Denver, and I had just turned 21. And young men at the age of 21, you're not even human. You know, I lived with 4 other subhumans in a house off Colfax. We were all sort of in various stages of trying to drink ourselves to an early grave. And at one point, we noticed that things were going missing around the house. My roommate Sam's camera had disappeared. The VCR that my mom had given me had disappeared. A bowl of change from my room. And, you know, things had been bad for a while. But this was a new thing. There had been an invasion of some kind. You know, somebody had come into our house and stolen stuff. And, you know, my roommate Kyle, you know, he was like, oh, there are these roofers working next door. You know, it was probably them. And I was like, nah, dude, like I've seen those guys working. They're working before we wake up. They're, busting their butts all day long. Those are not thieves. But I knew somebody who had a bone to pick with us and with me specifically, somebody who knew us, who knew our house, who knew we couldn't be bothered to lock the doors. This guy, Nate, who had been a friend of ours when we were all moving into this house together. I got wind of the fact that both that he didn't have the money for first month's rent and also that he'd been using heroin. And I made the judgment call that considering all the other problems we had, we didn't need to invite this into our home too.
Like he was the wrong level of addict for the house of addicts.
Exactly. Yeah. To be a drunk. I mean, well, hey, we were all drunks. That was just how you lived. But heroin was crossing a line. And he swore, publicly and, in front of everybody, the ways in which I was betraying him and how he would get revenge on me and all this stuff. So it seemed obvious that it would be, that it was him. So despite Kyle trying to get me not to do it, I picked up the phone. I called Nate. I was like, yo, I know what you did. We better not see you over here. And he was like, what are you talking about? And I was like, you're a thief. You stole from us. I was like, I don't want to see your face ever again. And he was like, well, I'm coming over right now. And I was like, that's exactly the opposite of what I'm telling you to do. I'm telling you never to come here ever again. And he was like, I'm getting in a car. I'm coming there right now. And Kyle is freaking out, and Kyle is like, oh, why did you call him? Like, why did you have to accuse him? Why are you doing this? And I loved Kyle, and he was a couple years older than me, and I really looked up to him. But he was, the rest of us held down jobs, and Kyle was like just drunk all the time and like always sponging off his girlfriend and like sponging off of everybody else. And I'd kind of like lost respect for him at that point. So then Nate shows up and starts hammering on the door. And Nate was like, yo, come outside. Like, let's settle this, And so I went outside and Kyle got between us. And then he was like, oh, you're going to hide behind Kyle, right? So he was accusing me of being scared. I was totally scared. Fighting sucks. And Nate was bigger than I was. I was a little bit taller than him, but he probably had 50 or 60 pounds on me. And I was absolutely scared. But I pushed Kyle out of the way. And then Nate clocked me in the side of the head. And it hurt. And, when he hurt me, it's like that fear turned into fury. And I just became enraged, not just at Nate for breaking into our house and stealing stuff from us, but like, enraged at the girl who had like was supposed to move to Denver with me and then had just dumped me out of nowhere. And I was enraged at like my cowardly housemates who had always left me to deal with the bad situations. And got mad at my mom and dad for bringing me into this world against my will. With my left arm, I held, Nate's face as far away from me as I could so that he couldn't hit me. And then with my right hand, I tried to destroy him, And Nate was tough. And we fought for a long time. And we fought all over the front yard.
Wow.
I hit him in the face and I was like, say, uncle. And he was just all bloody. And he said, no. I hit him 3 more times. And then I said, say, uncle. And he said, uncle. And he got up, just blood all over him, just gushing down his shirt all over his face. And he was like, fine, you beat me, you won, but I'm not a thief. And then I went back in the house and I was like, man, I don't even want to look at myself. Like Nate was so messed up. I was like, I've got to be destroyed. And I walked in the bathroom and like my shirt was torn open and I was covered in blood. Like I had jeans on and they were like shiny with blood on my shoes. But the only blood that was on my face was like a spot on my forehead. And when I went to wash it away, it was just splatter. It was a drop of blood that had flown off of his face onto mine. And my hands were chewed up from hitting him. But other than that, I didn't have a mark on me.
Okay. So walk me through what happens next.
So I went back out into the yard after washing up and Kyle was out there and he was having an asthma attack just from watching me beat the snot out of Nate in the front yard. And I felt horrific and I felt like a monster, but I also felt that I had done what what my job was, what my duty was to protect my house. So a couple of months later, things had sort of just gotten worse in our house to the point where we finally had to put Kyle in rehab. I ended up moving to New York, and I had been in New York for, I don't know, maybe 6 or 8 years when I was in a bar and Dave, who had been another one of our roommates, walked into the bar. And I was like, oh my God, Dave, what's up? So we hugged each other and we sat down on our bar stools and kept drinking and kept talking. And then we were talking about back in the day. And he was like, I really don't think Nate did it. And I was like, I really don't think he did either. And he said, I told my dad, and what my dad said was, the person who stole the things is the person in your house who had the greatest addiction. And I looked at Dave and he looked at me and we both went, oh my God, it was Kyle.
Oh God. That's why he was having an asthma attack.
Because he watched me beat the snot out of Nate for something that he had done.
Hey friends, I just wanted to thank you for listening and to let you know that if you want to support the podcast even more, you can head over to iTunes where you can rate it, and even more importantly, where you can write a review. It's really the best way to help make sure other people find out about the confessional. And if you'd like to hear and read more from me, you can sign up for my free newsletter and receive regular essays and prayers and, let's be honest, a whole lot of opinions over at nadiaboltzweber.substack.com. That's nadiaboltzweber.substack.com. That's my little corner of the internet, called, appropriately enough, The Corners. See you there. Thanks so much. So, Mishka, let's go back to that front yard in Denver for a minute. You said the rage you felt was suddenly not just about Nate, but was about other things too. So can you say more about what compounded anger feels like?
Yeah, I mean, it was sort of like honeycomb, where you have it all. You have all these different things that you're angry about separated by the little wall. And then one breaks and then the next one breaks and then they all break, I will be absolutely clear that I owe an apology to Nate, and I can't say, that I did more harm to myself than I did to him, because who's the judge of that? Not me, but I know in that moment that I did do damage to myself, because it's really, really ugly when you are forced to look at yourself and recognize your capacity for violence. How much anger you carry in your heart, how much fury you're capable of.
It's humbling, right? I mean, that's the weird thing about it. Feels like that kind of rage and violence is I guess we label it as powerful, but when you realize it's in you, it's humbling.
It's more powerful than we are. I still remember this very clearly over 20 years ago, that to hold him down and say uncle, and he said no, and then I hit him 3 more times, and it sounded like when you drop uncooked chicken on the floor, just that sound of flesh impacting it, and there was splatter. It was horrifying, I mean, literally had blood on my hands.
And it feels like such a juvenile thing to be say uncle.
I know, and that's one of the things, is that it's I was 7 years old, and we both were in that moment. I had a temper tantrum in my head, but the reason I keep returning to this story in my head is because it has so many connections to other things in my life, that when I was 15, a kid at my school got an assault rifle and shot a bunch of people at my school, shot 6 people, killed 2 of them, and changed our lives forever.
Oh, man.
Every year as the anniversary comes around, my Facebook timeline lights up with all my old classmates who are still 25 years later, they're still reeling from it, from losing a friend, from losing a teacher. And in that moment with Nate, with my old friend, I had loved Nate. We adored each other, staying up late, listening to John Prine and drinking until the sun came up. But in that moment, I was trying to kill him. So it was so horrifying for me to have had that experience of living through the school shooting and seeing firsthand the wages of violence and then still having that inside me.
Did you know the shooter?
Yeah, we were on the basketball team together and I testified in his murder trial.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Was he bullied?
Not that I saw, man. But to look at someone, it's impossible to see how they see themselves, and that's the thing is, people, look at me now and they're like, oh, you're an accomplished writer or whatever. And they don't realize I carry around in my head that, the 8-year-old kid where the other kids are like, you're gay, or you're fat or you suck, because we all carry that around inside us.
Yeah. Oh my God. I do. I mean, one of the reasons I had to get sober was it's not safe for other people if I'm drunk because I have anger issues.
Yeah.
I so much fucking rage inside of me. Part of me is grateful. I mean, I was just brutally bullied. I had an autoimmune disorder that caused my face to look abnormal, and kids are just cruel. And I was so angry and I don't know, I'm grateful to it because I think that rage protected something inside me,
Yeah.
It kept something alive, but then it's just you add drugs and alcohol and it's just it's explosive,
Yeah. Yeah.
Sometimes the thing that protected you is the thing that fucking tries to kill you eventually, and it's just knowing when that pivots,
The earth which fed you now consumes you.
So tell me more about what happened with Nate. Did you ever make amends to him?
I never went to AA, so amends is not part of my program. I quibble with the idea of amends because I can't unpunch Nate, right? I can apologize, but there's no way for me to undo the harm that I did in this world.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't think I can be released from this. I think what I need to do is I need to carry this. I need to carry the dark knowledge with me that I got that day, that I have evil in my heart, that I have darkness and I have rage. I have the capacity for violence, and I need to never forget that,
Yeah.
And you know what? It's absolutely guided my hand. I was in New York at one point and a woman had her phone stolen right in front of me and I ran the dude down. And then when he turned around, he knew that he was caught. That's the time when I, lead with your left and follow up with your right? No, I stopped and I said, dude, give me the phone and walk away or we fucking go to war. I gave him the option and he took it. He gave me the phone and I said, I got you. And I walked away and nobody was hurt. I got tackled on stage once in Chicago by this dude who was heckling me, and I heckled back because that's what I do for a living. And I hurt his feelings, and he charged me on the stage. And I was very careful to use my long arms and keep him away from me, but not to punch him, not to hit him, not to do anything that would mean that he would fall off, hit his head on the corner of a table and have his life changed forever. So, it's I would love to go back and undo that moment, but then how would that change my life? I had to learn somehow how much capacity for destruction I carry.
I mean, I think when you have something like that inside of you, to deny it's there isn't great because it comes out. It just comes out. It's going to come out in some weird way. I mean, it sounds to me like you, instead of battling it or pretending it's not true, it sounds like you kind of just made friends with it. I see you. I see you over there.
Yeah. Yeah. Keep your friends close and your enemies closer, right?
Right. Even the internal ones.
Yeah. I have grave misgivings about airing this story publicly because, we live in a world now where where violence is poison, and I mean, this is textbook toxic masculinity, like a couple of drunken idiots slugging it out, but whenever I'm reluctant to tell a story, that's how I know that it's a story that's important to tell. Every single one of us, we all carry a terrible secret. We've all done things we're horribly ashamed about. You can't deny it. That's the human condition. And we're here not despite our weakness, but because of our weakness. And the way that we're going to get through it is not by saying it doesn't exist, but by sharing it, acknowledging it, connecting with each other because of it, communicating through it. And that's how we get better,
What more could we ask of ourselves in a way? I mean, we can't ask that we don't have flaws. It's just unreasonable. I think the only thing we can ask of ourselves is that when they rear their heads in such a way that so much damage incurs, that we fucking learn something from it. Like one of my children, Judah, when he was, maybe 12, I got a call from Twist and Shout, the record store on Colfax.
Yeah.
Saying that they had him in the back. He was caught shoplifting. And, I was humiliated, had to go get my kid. And he'd never, I don't think it was a practice he had regularly, but he tried to steal this Doctor Who keychain, like such a nerd. And it wasn't even something cool. I'm like, not even a Ramones album, And when we're driving away, I said, look, like it was really embarrassing for me to come and get you, and I don't want to ever do that again. And so here's what I want to tell you is that I stole some candy when I was your age and I got caught, and I was so horrified that I just didn't do it again. And I said, so here's the deal. You're not going to be punished for this because I want to see if you learn from it. So if you don't steal again, you will never be punished for this. If you do steal again, you are going to pay compound interest on it, right? The important thing is that you learn, not that you don't make mistakes. So I don't know. I appreciate the way you told me the story and the sort of insights you had about it, because you can kind of enumerate, here's the shit that I haven't done again yet. And that's important. So thank you, Mishka, for telling me about this. I'm so grateful. It was a pleasure to talk to you.
Yeah, I hate this story, but hopefully this will sort of help in putting it to bed,
Yeah, I hope so too. A blessing for Mishka. Mishka, you mentioned how before you beat the snot out of him, that you would sit in the basement with your friend Nate and you would sing John Prine songs. And I wonder if you ever sang that lyric, an old man sleeps with his conscience at night, young kids sleep with their dreams, from Prine's song, The Late John Garfield Blues. See, I'm writing this blessing for you on April 8th, 2020, and John Prine died yesterday. So I offer you his words as a benediction for having told a story you didn't want to tell about a thing you did you wish you hadn't felt like you had to, an action that caused your conscience to companion your sleep and not your dreams. You spoke of needing to keep your capacity for violence close, to not take your eye off of what you are capable of. I get that. So yes, hold that dark knowledge you carry of the violence that is in you. Sleep with your conscience, Mishka. But know that the anger you carry need not be weaponized to hide your fear or protect your 7-year-old boy self or to defend your manhood. But the anger you carry also need not be completely tamed. Because maybe it is there for good, as in forever, but also as in for the benefit of those who need protecting and defending. So as you grow into an older man, may your rage be detoxified and repurposed. Go ahead and lead with your left and follow up with your right when it comes to things like protecting drunk young men from themselves and getting some lady's stolen cell phone back. Sleep with your conscience, but may you still dream like a young kid. That is my blessing for you, Mishka. You another child who's grown old. I wish you a beneficent masculinity. John is gone now, and the world needs it. Amen. Next time on the final episode of Season 1 of The Confessional, I speak with a writer about some of her romantic regrets.
That's what 10 years of sobriety will get you.
It'll get you not laid.
Not laid. Total betrayal. No orgasm.
In the meantime, here's a confession from a fellow listener. It's a segment I call Shit I'm Not Proud Of.
Hey, Nadia. This is Destiny from Boise. The shit that I'm not proud of is that when I was in middle school, I was dating this guy, and we had this dramatic on-again, off-again relationship that only 13-year-olds have the energy to maintain. And after we had broken up, when I was in high school, I ran into him at a store, and I said hi, and he called me a bitch. And I got really upset, but I didn't actually do anything. He had moved out of town. He was just in town visiting. So after he left, I told everyone that he called me a bitch, and I punched him in the face and broke his nose. And I maintained that story for way longer than I should have. And now I don't talk about it because I'm really embarrassed. So that's the shit that I'm not proud of. Thanks.
Do you have some shit you're not proud of? Call 618-CONFESS and leave me a message about an embarrassing moment, and I might play it on the show. The Confessional is produced by House of Pod and Shameless Media, with support and spiritual guidance from The Moth and PRX. Our original music is composed by Antoine Banks Williams.